Memory, presentation, storage and devices. Memory is a component of computer that holds the data and instructions. We covered some of the topic already. Okay, so quick recap of it. Memory is an integral part of the computer. Computer contains two type of memory on the basis of their data. We already discussed that first one is a primary one and second one is the secondary one. Primary memory and the secondary memory are the two main kinds of memory, and in the primary memory we have further two sections, that is RAM and ROM. We studied in the previous one. Okay. Primary memory. What is the work of primary memory? Primary memory is a component of the computer that holds the data, program and instructions that are currently in use. Primary memory is built inside the computer, already come with that. Okay. As a result, data can be read from and write to a memory extremely quickly, so they are faster than the secondary storage. Primary memory is comparatively limited in size, especially when compared with the secondary storage. Primary memory is often around 4 GB in size. Okay, this is like a typical value of a RAM. Right now we have a far more increment in the RAM. Right now in the market we have the PC having a minimum 8 GB of RAM, right? You can increase it like 4 GB, 8 GB, 16, 32. So right now we are having the 8 GB. For your textbook it's 4 GB. RAM, that is random access memory, and ROM, that is read only memory, are the two primary memory, two main kind of primary memory. They are also known as main memory and primary memory. Okay. In that, first, random access memory, it is a volatile kind of memory. Yes, Aditi, can you explain what do we mean by volatile? Yes, okay, that is correct. Uh, we call the volatile word. Volatile memory loses its contents when unpowered. So whenever you are having a power in the computer, there it holds the data. When it loses the power, it will lose the data. Okay, so this is RAM, volatile memory. RAM is given the term random access because the data can be stored and accessed from any location within the memory. Hence, it is known as random access memory. Okay, as per the name, you can simply remember what does it mean. RAM is used to hold the data and instructions that are currently in use. Whatever the program we are running, that will be running on what? RAM. Next, that is read only memory. Read only memory, ROM, that is a non-volatile kind of memory, which means it is going to hold the data permanently. Some of the data which computers requires to turn on, requires to carry out the post test, requires to manage the basic input output system, this information must be there with the computer whether the power is there or whether the power is not there. So in this case, this is a kind of permanent storage, and read only memory is non volatile kind of memory. It is a type of permanent memory. ROM can be read from but not written, hence name as read only, right? We already discussed about this, that manufacturer who is embedding this particular ROM onto your motherboard, they are having the fixed value. We can't update that thing, it is already there. Okay, from the manufacturer. This makes ROMs ideal for storing instructions and data that are needed for computer to run system software like operating system. RAM is also called ROM bias. Remember, RAM is also known as ROM bias. Bias, that means basic input output system. A program that is stored on a ROM, it checks that a hardware is functioning correctly, then runs a second program known as boot up or bootstrap program that loads a computer's operating system from the hard drive to the RAM. Okay, we discussed about this as well. There is a bootstrap program after a post test, like power on self test. When post test is ready, system finds there is a operating system in the ROM BIOS. Finding a particular operating system, now charge will be given to the operating system. So this all task will be done by the BIOS, basic input output system, and they contain the programs like bootstrap, also known as bootup. And one thing, when you turn on the PC, right, it is going to take time to have you the login window. So that time from you have switched on your PC and the PC gets started and you have to log in now, that time interval is known as boot time. Okay, boot time, how fast your PC gets turned on. If your PC gets turned on too faster, that means the boot time is very less. If your PC takes too long to get turned on, then this is having a boot time issue. The BIOS is always needed, so it's stored in a ROM. BIOS must be there, so it is a part of. See, in the previous lecture, we also noted down some of the information. Uh, Even though if you find some of the points which is missing from that topic, so you can note it down from this slide. Okay, so let me know when you note down the extra points from this. Okay, the reaction when done. See, I can show you the typical RAM over here. This is how RAM looks like. As you can see here, this is a particular RAM looks like. This is a 4 GB of RAM, and this is how it looks like inside the computer CPU. Okay, in the laptop they are having half of its size. In the laptop you will find this will be of this much size. Okay, in laptop it is having reduced size up to a half size, and this is of particular CPU PC. So personal computer having this much of size of RAM. Now, now some of the difference between the RAM and the ROM. Uh, Already discussed, but let's keep it. So read-only memory, readable and writable memory, non-volatile memory ROM, volatile memory. ROM contains BIOS, RAM contains the programs and the OS which is running on it. Okay, usually around 4 GB in the PC and not upgradable. ROM is fixed, and in the RAM it is usually 4 GB. You can upgrade it, depends on your processors and your system capability. You can increase it up to 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB, and so on. Okay, so these are upgradable. We are talking about a typical personal computer. So this is it. Now this is a new point, virtual memory. What is a virtual memory? See, we already discussed that when we turn on any program, the data will be occupied on the RAM. Okay, let's assume that you're having a PC having a 4 GB of RAM. Now you turn on multiple applications, right? And every applications is allocating some of the data on that RAM. Now if that application you turn on that is occupied too much space in the RAM, now RAM is having no more space in it to run the system. Now in this case what happens, your PC won't find, you can't open a new program into your system. Why? Because the RAM is fully occupied. Now your system is capable of creating the virtual memory. What system does is they take some part of the secondary memory okay, and make it as a virtual memory so that they can uh, transfer the unuseful data over that virtual memory. Okay, so let's see what it is. Virtual memory is a use of secondary storage as an additional primary memory. Okay, when we are having a lack of memory, in this case secondary storage can also be used as a memory. Here you can see the structure. See, this is a CPU, central processing unit. They can interact using cache memory, and this is a RAM. Now some portion of a hard disk or SSD will be occupied as a virtual memory, so that RAM and cache memory, along with RAM and cache memory, virtual memory can also be used as a primary memory by the CPU, central processing unit. So this is the hard disk. Instead of hard disk, there can be SSD or any other USB flash drive. They can be they can be treated as a virtual memory. Virtual memory enables data that is in RAM and not currently being in used to be transferred to the hard disk. This free up room in the RAM for the other programs and the data. So this is when data on the hard disk is needed again, any other unused data is transferred to the hard disk before the original data is transferred back to the RAM. This process is known as swapping of data. But thing is that we know that hard disk like HDD, hard disk drive, this is a bit slower than the RAM and the cache memory. So in this case, you will find a bit lag in your system. Okay, the transfer of data may take a while. So in this case, you will find the you have to wait for a few seconds to turn on your program to transfer the data, because this is much slower with respect to RAM and cache memory. So let's there is some point about virtual memory. Note it down and let me know when done. Okay. Now cache memory. We discussed about this one as well. Cache memory. The cache memory is a type of high speed random access memory which is built inside the processor. Okay, the processor like to have some of the information so that it can directly process the data, the repetitive data which processor requires for process something. That data will be stored inside a cache. So cache is a quite faster memory. Cache memory is used to temporarily hold the data and instruction that is processor likely to reuse. So cache memory is also kind of temporary memory, it's also kind of volatile memory. Okay, cache memory is more expensive to build than a RAM. They are faster but quite more expensive than the RAM. So that's the reason cache memory will be around 6 MB, 8 MB. This will be in MBs, megabytes, not in GBs, gigabytes. Okay, a typical PC, typical CPU which you buy around having 4 GB of RAM, 1 TB of storage as a hard disk, that particular PC can have around 6 MB of cache value or either 8 MB of cache value. Okay? So these are in MBs, megabytes. Cache memory tends to be a very small in size. Here specific types of cache values are there: L1 cache, L2 cache. Here L1 cache, that is extremely fast transfer rate, but it is very small in size. Another one, the process uses L1 cache to hold most frequently used instructions and the data. L2 cache, bigger capacity but the slower one than the L1. So L2 bigger in capacity than L1 cache but slower in the speed. It is used to hold the data and instructions that are needed less frequently. Okay, so more frequently used data will be in the L1 cache and the less frequently used data will be in the L2 cache. Remember, L1 is faster with respect to L2, but L1 is a smaller one with respect to L2. L2 will be the bigger size memory. So this is some extra detail related to cache memory, so note it down. Okay, let's continue. Next is a flash memory. You can see the example of flash memory. You have seen the typical USB pen drives. They are the kind of flash memory. You have seen this kind of device. Okay, to transfer the data, we generally use the USB pen drive that can hold a small amount of data as well as big amount of data, and they are kind of solid state drives. Flash memory is a special type of memory. It can be written to and overwritten. You can also write to them and also you can read from that. Okay, so that is why it is oftenly used for data transfer. Flash memory is fast to access and write to, although not as fast as when reading or writing from a RAM. It is faster with respect to hard disk drive, but it is slower with comparison to the RAM. It requires a little power and contain no moving parts, making it an ideal storage medium for many modern devices such as tablets, smartphones, and digital cameras. Okay, the device, your mobile, which is having built-in memory inside it. That built-in memory is a flash memory. Okay, you can see a small black integrated chip. That black integrated chip is what? Flash memory. Yeah, storage chip, this black part. Flash memory is also used as external secondary storage, for example, in USB memory stick and in a solid state. About flash. Now come up to the secondary storage. Okay, the permanent kind of storage, it is having a large capacity. The system requires uh, like hard disk system requirements like hard disk SSD. They come in a category of secondary storage. So let's study this in first. Non volatile permanent storage memory. A hard disk drive has a high capacity and reasonable access speed, making it suitable for the everyday storage program and the data. Okay, so this is the the hard disk in upcoming slide. A USB stick is smaller in capacity but extremely fast and portable, making it suitable for transferring the files between the computer. See, which device is used where, you need to understand that thing. See, hard disk. When you need to store a data permanently in the computer, you don't need to transfer it multiple times. So in this case, you can use a hard disk. Okay, it is not portable. You can fix over there, fix inside your CPU. When you need to transfer the data, you require a portable device. In this case, we have the USB, having a small capacity also, and it also comes with a larger capacity nowadays. And also, it is extremely fast and portable. You can easily transfer the data, so it's ideal for transferring the data. Secondary storage. See, on the basis of their constructions, which medium is used to store the data, we have three different kinds. First one, we call it magnetic kind of storage. Then second is a solid state kind of storage, and third one is a optical one. Okay, so depends on the medium where you are storing the information: magnetic, solid state, and the optical. These are the three different types. So want to note down something from this slide, have it, and move to the next one. We're going to study them individually. First one, we're going to begin with a magnetic, then we're going to be starting with a solid state, and then maybe optical one. Now, magnetic devices such as hard disk drive uses magnetic field to magnetize tiny individual sections of a metal spinning disk. Okay, here you can see the typical hard disk drive. In this picture, you can see this disk, this circular disk. This is having a magnetism property. This is having tiny magnets over the whole disk. Okay, this this particular disk will be having a tiny, very small magnets. Thousands of magnets will be there over this disk, and they are very tiny. And this is a head. This head used to work for reading the data and for writing the data. This head is called read write head. Through this head, the data will be data can be read and can be written on the disk. Each section represents one beat. Okay, each magnetic section, that tiny section, represents one beat, either the north pole or the south pole. Okay, north pole represents 1 and south pole represents 0. So depend on the alignment of that poles of that magnetic property, the data will be stored inside the disk and also can be read. With respect to this, north will be considered as a 1 and south can be considered as a 0. The magnetized sections represents binary 1 and demagnetized section represents binary 0. Okay, so the magnetized one, which is having north pole, that will be having 1 value, and demagnetized section, which will be having value 0. These sections are so tiny that a disk can contain terabyte, which means TB of data. So that TB of data, terabyte, which means you can have 1000 GB storage capacity. As a disk is spinning, read and write head moves across its surface. As you can see in the image, this moves along its surface and this disk is continuously rotating on its axis. So this allows to read the whole disk at a time. To write the data, head magnetize and demagnetize a section according to the clearly audible. Now am I clearly audible? Hello, hello. Okay. So to read the data, the head makes a note of whether the section is magnetized or not. If whether it is a magnetized, then it represents the binary value 1, and if it is not magnetized, the head finds the value to be a 0. So this is how zeros and ones. We know that 1 0 will be 1 beat, 1 1 will be 1 beat. So likewise, terabytes of beat will be there. Okay, and this is how it works. Magnetic devices are fairly cheap. They are high capacity, they are high in capacity. You can store 1 TB of data, 2 TB of data, and are durable. They are like they are having a good body structure like this. You can see the typical hard disk in my hand. Okay, so this is a typical hard disk looks like, and they are durable. uh, in this we are having a electronic chip, and inside this there will be a disk, but this is also durable, but there is having some disadvantage of this. As you can see, they are having a moving part in it. Okay, so they requires a energy, much more energy with respect to another kind of storages, as well as they are they feel more wear and tear, as it is having movable parts in this. Okay, as it is having movable parts, every time when head needs to study the data, it need to move from this side to that side. In this case, this particular hard disk is becomes like a lower speed. It contains low speed because it is having moving part. Okay, you know, study time of data is the delay in a study time of data, the delay in reading and writing of data is known as latency. So this particular hard disk is having a higher latency than the SSD. Okay, so it takes larger time to study and read the data because it is having mechanical moving part in it. So these are some disadvantages of the hard disk. However, they are susceptible to a damage if dropped. If you drop it out, you can see this device can be harmed because this mechanism can be damaged, and if you damage this mechanism, it's quite hard to read this data. Okay, it stucks this disk, and if it can't rotate on its axis, or either this head can't move on the particular position, this disk will be failed. Okay, you can't read this disk, even you can't find a disk in your. They are also vulnerable to a magnetic field. See, they are having the magnetic polarity over here. Okay, north pole, south pole, and in this case, if you put a magnet near to it, high strength magnet near to it, you can simply damage your hard disk because they are sensible for the magnetic field. Okay, so they are also vulnerable to a magnetic field. A strong magnet might possible erase the data the device because it will change the polarity of the holes which is mentioned, change the polarity of the magnets which is in the. So this is about hard disk. Typically looks like this. Okay, quite heavier, and some of the losses I told you, it's more often to wear and tear, uh, less faster than it is quite not much slower than the SSD, much slower than the RAM because of its moving part. So note down those points, essential one, and also add some of the point like this north represents 1 and south represents 0. Okay, so this is some the value, and this disk is known as platers. This disk are known as platers. There will be a layer of multiple platers on the hard disk. So this disks are known as platers. So few points missing in this, so add it. Again repeating, represent one as a north, representing south as a 0, and another one is this disk used in this will be known as platers. And next one, optical one. We have 10 minutes, we can complete this one. This is going to be our last topic for today. Okay, so optical devices, optical storage. The optical device uses a laser to scan the surface spinning disk made from a metal and the plastic. Here you can see a typical disk. This kind of disk you have seen, we call them CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays as well. So that particular disk is used for storing the data in terms of optical data. Here, the disk surface is divided into a tracks, with each track contains many flat area and the hollows. Okay. So here we have certain criteria where laser strikes on this surface. If there will be a hollow, so it will simply penetrate that disk. And if there is no hole over there, so that disk, that laser will be reflected back. So in terms of that hole and the reflection, the data will be stored in the optical disk. So the flat areas known as lands and the hollow portions are known as pits. Here, when laser shines on the disk surface, lands reflects the light back, whereas hollows will simply allow the light to transfer from the disk. So pits scatters the laser beams. A sensor look for the reflected light. The reflected light represents a binary value 1, and no reflection. Where there is a pit, it is represented as 0. So likewise, holes and flats, pits and flats represents the binary values like 0, 1, 1, 0, and so on. Optical medium come also in a different types, such as ROM media have the data pre-written on them. The data cannot be overwritten. Generally, when you buy a software and that software is in the CD, like you have seen that antivirus software, when we buy it from the shop, they give us a CD or DVD kind of thing. So when you put it inside your computer, you can install it only once. Okay, you can install it only, you can't upload anything over it. So that is why it is called ROM. Have a data written on it, read only memory, you can't write on them, and it can be written once only. So if we try to copy or paste that thing, it won't work. Our media are the blank kind of disk. An optical device writes data to them by shining a laser onto the disk, and the laser burns a pit to represent 0, and media can only be written once but read many times. So our media, in this you can write once, read many times. Copies of data often made using this media. Generally DVD of the movie will be in this form. RW, that is read and write kind of disk, works in a similar way to R, except the disk can be written to a more than once. So you can write over a disk more than one time. You can also read from the disk more than one time. So if you upload some data to the disk, that's not it. You can upload data one more time, you can erase the data, you can upload few more data to it. So likewise, you can have multiple read and write operation over this disk. So these are the different kinds of optical storage. So note down some of the important points which you're looking for, and let me know. Done. next topic we can have a solid state drive, and we'll study about that thing as well. But I would like to have some of the questions related to today's topic. So have a quick recap on that. I will ask some question to it. So just let me know when you are done. I will ask few questions related to today's topic. Have a quick recap on the topic we have studied today. Quick recap on your notes as well. Okay. Let's begin. So first question. Uh, Types of memory. No, not that. What I'm asking about is two kinds of memory, two division of memory, primary and secondary. Okay. What are those two subdivision of primary memory? RAM, ROM. So which one, in which one of the disk you can only read the data, you can't write to that disk? Oh, okay. Uh, in terms of speed, if I compare the hard disk and the RAM, which one will be the faster? Which is going to have the higher capacity of storing the data? Hard disk. Okay. Uh, which one of those uh, which one of those uh, have a magnetic kind of storage capacity? I'm going to give you some of the option: RAM, ROM, or HDD. HDD. Okay. Um, what is the reason? What is the reason for HDD being slower? No, this can't be the reason. The reason I told you, it is having a mechanical part. Okay, it is having a moving part in it. So moving a head from different position, one position to another position, may take a time. Okay, so in this case, to read the data, to write the data, head needs to move continuously, so that moving of a head is that make it slower. So that's the reason hard disk is slower. As SSD and RAM and the ROM, they are not having any mechanical mechanism in that. So in this case, they are faster. They are having a flash kind of data storage. Got that? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you two options. You have to let me know which is used, which will be better useful for data transfer from one place to another. Okay, the data is like around 10 GB, something kind of data is there. USB or the HDD? USB. Okay. Uh, Explain me what is virtual memory. Yes. Uh, so can you let me know, is virtual memory is having same speed as the RAM, as a primary memory? Yes, it will be slower, right? Because the mechanism is the same. We are just occupying some space on it. So we are occupying a space, but mechanism is the same. So they are uh, slower than the primary memory. Okay. Uh, what kind of data does that virtual memory hold? Okay. So when system requires that data, they transfer the data from a virtual memory to the RAM. What what is that process known as? Good. Uh, can you just let me know the three medium of storage? Good. Um, CD, CD and DVD. CD stands for compact disc and DVD stands for digital versatile disc. So they uses which medium to store the data? Optical. Um, now, mm, yeah. Can you just explain how hard disk remembers whether the data is in form of whether the data is like zeros or ones? How the disk recognize that thing in form of bits, in form of zeros, in form of ones? Yes. Well done. Good, good. So, okay, what are those disks known as? Those disks known as platers. Platers. Those disks known as platers. Okay. Okay. So, keeping it over here till today, we'll see the upcoming topic in the next lecture. Okay. Bye bye. See you in the next lecture.